Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Officials in Chile say that they have arrested 18 suspects this week and are currently searching for up to a dozen more, following a massive heist at a cash-in-transit facility, a crime that has been likened to something out of a movie. Local sources appear to contradict each other as to exactly when the situation began. However, it's reported that the whole thing unfolded sometime on August 16th at a Brinks branch in the city of Rancagua. According to reports, the suspects were able to infiltrate the facility and bypass cameras by dressing in similar outfits to company employees and wore wigs to further disguise themselves. By the time anyone realized what was going on, it was too late. The robbers were already inside. While these suspects worked to steal cash from the Brinks office, they were supported by other heavily armed accomplices who worked to misdirect the police response. A major part of this reportedly involved setting several vehicles on fire. A shootout between police and the culprits ensued, during which multiple suspects were injured and captured. However, in the end, the criminals ended up getting away with the money. It's not known exactly how much was stolen at the time of this recording, though estimates that have been released range from 12 billion to 25 billion Chilean pesos, or about $13 to $27 million USD. According to police, the robbery was carried out by between 25 and 30 people, most of whom are said to belong to an inter-regional criminal syndicate. It's alleged that the culprits have been planning the heist for months, and that a crucial part of the scheme involved the help of two Brinks employees, a security guard and a cashier. They are now among the 18 suspects who have so far been arrested. At the time of this recording, officials say that they are working to track down the remaining culprits, as well as find the missing money. The situation is still developing. Representatives from the Spanish Civil Guard say that a suspect is in custody this week after a massive 2-day search in connection with the disturbing murder of a young boy. The incident began on the morning of August 18th, when the victim, identified only as an 11-year-old boy named Mateo, was playing soccer with some friends at the local Ángel Tardío Sports Center in his hometown of Mocejón. According to reports, Mateo was hanging around with two other boys his age when suddenly they were approached by a strange man. The man was wearing a hood, had a bandana covering his face, and was armed with a knife. Evidently realizing that they were in danger, the children took off running moments later. Two of them managed to make it to safety, though tragically, Mateo wasn't so lucky. He was grabbed by the suspect, who proceeded to stab him at least 10 times. The man then fled the scene in a gray Ford Mondeo. Emergency responders were called to the scene, though sadly, despite their quick response, nothing could be done for the 11-year-old. He was pronounced dead shortly after. According to local news sources, at least 3 of the wounds he suffered would have been fatal. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, police launched a widespread search in the surrounding area. Ground, air, and underwater units were deployed, and raids were carried out at least 2 local residences. The operation came to an end the following day when police announced that a 20-year-old man from the area had been arrested. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, almost no additional information about the case appears to have been released. Authorities have not identified the suspect by name, nor has any kind of motive behind the crime been confirmed. At the same time, Mateo's devastated family members have come out to express their grief over their sudden and heartbreaking loss. In a statement, the 11-year-old's cousin said in part, quote, "He was a super good boy, super affectionate. He was playing with his friends when someone arrived. We have no further information. These are difficult times." The situation is still developing. Representatives from England's Greater Manchester Police say that 1 person is dead this week and 2 others are fighting for their lives in hospital following an alleged stabbing attack at the home of a local family. The incident began at around 11:20 p.m. on August 18th, when police began receiving a number of calls about a knife attack at a residence on Barnard Road in Manchester's Gorton area. Callers stated that they had heard a commotion coming from a home there, and some had witnessed a girl being chased and attacked out in the street. When officers arrived, they found the girl in question, a 17-year-old who was suffering from serious stab wounds. Inside the nearby home where she lived with her family, they found her 64-year-old father, Joshua, and her 43-year-old mother, Alberta Obinum. They were suffering from similar injuries. Joshua was rushed to a hospital in critical condition along with his 17-year-old daughter, though sadly, nothing could be done for Alberta. She was pronounced dead a short time later at the scene. As all of this was unfolding, authorities arrested a 22-year-old man who is now accused of carrying out the terrifying attack. So far, the man's name has not been released, though it's said that he was known to the victims, and in reports, police characterized the situation as a, quote, domestic incident. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, this is essentially all we know about the awful crime. The situation has reportedly come as a great shock to both residents in the area, as well as those who knew the victims. In interviews with local media, friends, co-workers, and community members described Alberta as a happy, smiley person who was a mother to everyone. The 43-year-old had 4 children and had a job as an in-home care worker. She was well known within the local Ghanaian community, and her husband were also very active in their church. At the time of this recording, police say that they are actively investigating the circumstances that led up to the triple stabbing, and that the 22-year-old suspect is being held on suspicion of murder. According to the latest available update, Joshua and his 17-year-old daughter are still in the hospital in life-threatening condition. Authorities in the Thai province of Pranakon Si Ayutthaya say that a man is wanted in connection with a harrowing domestic violence-related incident this week after he allegedly shot and killed his ex-wife and her father, an attack that not only unfolded in a public place, but was also carried out in front of the suspect and the victim's 2 young children. The whole thing began at around 6:30 p.m. on August 16th, when the female victim, a 29-year-old by the name of Dharani, had just finished teaching a daily exercise class at a local temple in Maha district. She was preparing to leave to head back home with her 59-year-old father, Nippon, when suddenly her car was blocked in by another vehicle. That vehicle was reportedly being driven by Dharani's ex-husband, Chokchai. According to witnesses, Chokchai quickly jumped out and approached Dharani as she got into her car. The pair had recently divorced, and Chokchai was attempting to confront her, believing that he could convince her to reconcile the relationship. When it became clear that this would not work, Chokchai allegedly pulled out a handgun. He fired at least 8 times through the windshield of Dharani's vehicle before walking around and firing several more shots at close range into the driver's side window. Dharani and Nippon were killed almost instantly. As if all of this weren't horrifying enough, the fatal shooting allegedly happened in front of Dharani and Chokchai's 2 boys, who were just 2 and 4 years old. According to reports, Chokchai had taken the boy from Dharani's home that afternoon, somehow apparently believing this would help his attempt to fix their relationship. By the time police arrived at the scene, Chokchai had already fled with the boys. Their safety is still a major concern. However, based on the latest available reports, it appears that Chokchai has since contacted authorities and agreed to turn himself in. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. Authorities in the Balkan nation of Bosnia and Herzegovina say that multiple people are dead this week and 1 is in critical condition after an employee at a high school shot and killed 3 co-workers before turning his weapon on himself. The incident took place just after 10 a.m. on August 21st at a high school in the town of Sanski, located about 120 miles from the capital of Sarajevo. It began when the male suspect walked into the building armed with an automatic rifle and began shooting during the middle of a school committee meeting. It's unclear exactly how long the disturbing attack lasted. However, by the time police arrived at the scene, it appears the shooting was already over. The suspect had shot 3 staff members before turning his weapon on himself. Sadly, all 3 of the victims were pronounced dead, while the shooter was rushed to a hospital in critical condition. At the time of this recording, the incident just happened, so details are still trickling out. The identity of the suspect has not been released, though it's said that he was a janitor at the high school. As for the victims, they have been identified as the school's dean, a secretary, and an English teacher. Because summer holidays are still on, no students were present in the school at the time of the attack. However, teachers had gathered for meetings to prepare for the upcoming year. As for a motive, nothing has been confirmed, though local media sources have already began releasing some information. Multiple reports allege that the janitor who carried out the attack had ongoing conflicts with several co-workers and was facing disciplinary proceedings. It's further alleged that the man specifically targeted the 3 victims who were killed. Keep in mind, though, these details have not yet been verified. Currently, investigations are ongoing. Authorities in Auckland, New Zealand say that they are working to contact dozens of people and are trying to track down the source of an illicit shipment after a local food bank accidentally distributed hundreds of candies that turned out to be laced with methamphetamine. The whole thing began in mid-July when the organization in question, Auckland City Mission, received a large box of pineapple candies as part of their donations. The candies were pre-packaged, fully wrapped, and appeared to have been manufactured by Malaysian food company Rinda. As a result, bags of the candies were distributed to those who used the food bank. Unfortunately, what no one apparently knew was that the candy had been tampered with. The true scope of the situation was only revealed earlier this month when Auckland City Mission began receiving phone calls from people who had received the candies as part of their food packages. Several described the sweets as having a revolting taste to the point that they had spit them out immediately. This ended up being a good thing, too, because after the foul taste was verified by workers at the mission, the candies were sent off for testing, revealing an unsettling truth. They had been tampered with many of them containing up to 3 grams each of meth. According to reports, this is many times the average dose, and could have been potentially fatal to anyone ingesting it. Thankfully, it appears that while a couple of people were hospitalized as a result of the candies, no one was seriously injured. All the same, the obvious question was, how had this happened? So far, the exact cause remains a mystery, though a company spokesman for Rinda stated that they do not directly export goods to New Zealand. Authorities have suggested that the most likely situation is that someone unwittingly gave the sweets to the charity without realizing what was inside, as each one of the candies had an estimated street value of roughly $600 US. According to the latest available reports, so far the Auckland City Mission have reached out to roughly 400 people who may have unknowingly received the candies. At least 41 candies have been recovered, though many more are still unaccounted for. Officials in Kenya have released an unsettling update in one of the country's highest-profile criminal cases this week, announcing that an accused serial killer who recently confessed to the murders of dozens of women has escaped from custody. Not only that, but police are suspected to have helped him. In case you didn't catch our previous segment on this story, the case began in the middle of July of this year when a horrifying discovery was made at a landfill in the capital of Nairobi. The landfill is located in the Kware settlement area of the city and was once a quarry. While searching for a missing local woman there named Josephine Owino, a group of men who had been hired by her family stumbled across something truly awful. Hidden amongst the piles of garbage, they not only found Josephine's body, but the bodies of at least 8 other women. Almost all of the women's remains had been left in nylon bags that had been secured with rope. Due to this, as well as autopsies which suggested that they had each been killed in the same way, authorities concluded that a serial killer was responsible for the crimes. This appeared to be confirmed when just 3 days later, police announced that they had arrested a suspect in connection with the case. That suspect was a 33-year-old local man named Collins Jumaisi Kalusha. At the time that Kalusha's arrest was announced, police revealed some of the evidence they had reportedly collected against him. They stated that the 33-year-old lived close to the dump site where the bodies were recovered, and that personal items, including clothing and cell phones belonging to some of the victims, had been found in his possession. They further added that geolocation data on the phones placed the women at Kalusha's home. These claims were accompanied by an even more startling accusation. Police alleged that during interviews, Kalusha had confessed to killing at least 42 women since 2022, including his own wife. Despite all of this, the situation quickly became more complicated. It began when people started asking questions about how so many murders could have gone unnoticed by authorities, particularly because the landfill where the remains were uncovered was just over 100 yards from a police station. This, as well as claims from Kalusha's lawyer that he had been tortured into providing a false confession, caused many to believe that police were either directly involved in these crimes, or that at the very least had shown extreme amounts of negligence in their handling of these cases. Well, this week the case took another turn when it was announced that Kalusha had been part of a mass jailbreak from the police station where he was being held. According to local news sources, following his arrest, the 33-year-old was being kept in custody at Nairobi's Gigiri police station. On August 16th, he had his latest court hearing, in which it was decided he would be detained for a further 7 days before police were required to bring formal charges against him. 4 days later, at around 5 a.m. on August 20th, guards at the facility were in the middle of serving breakfast to detainees in their cells when they realized that more than a dozen people were missing. Kalusha, along with 12 Eritrean nationals who had been arrested for staying in the country illegally, had managed to escape. They reportedly did this by cutting the wire mesh enclosing the top of a fenced-in outdoor area. After getting out through this hole, the 13 men climbed a perimeter fence and took off into the night. However, officials now allege that the escape was an inside job. They suspect that several police officers working at the station aided the suspects and helped them break out of the facility. It's not exactly clear what the officers are accused of doing, though officials have stated that it would have been very difficult for inmates to get past security even after escaping from their cells. At least 8 officers are now under investigation and have been suspended from their duties. At the time of this recording, Kalusha, as well as the 12 other escapees, remain on the run. The situation is still developing. Representatives from Australia's New South Wales Police released a major update in a more than 26-year-old cold case murder investigation last week, announcing that after all this time, they have finally arrested the person they believe is responsible for the crime. The case began all the way back in the early morning hours of March 10, 1998, when police received a 000 emergency call from a residence in the Sydney suburb of Dover Heights. They were called by then 55-year-old Aaron Govendir, who said that he and his wife had just been the victims of a violent home invasion. When help arrived at the scene, Aaron explained that they had opened the door that morning to a man pretending to be a police officer. Terrifyingly, by the time that they had realized what was going on, it was too late. The man had forced his way inside and attacked. Aaron had been knocked unconscious and restrained with cable ties. He had awoken to find his 53-year-old wife Denise in much worse shape. She had been viciously beaten in the head. Sadly, she didn't survive. Initially, it seemed that the motive behind the crime had been robbery, as the Govendir's 1997 Ford Laser had been stolen from their driveway. When the vehicle was recovered about a mile from the crime scene 11 days later, investigators were optimistic. However, this is where the investigation hit a wall. During subsequent press conferences, Aaron recounted his horrifying story, pleading for members of the public to come forward with information for him and his 2 grieving children. However, no trace of the mysterious perpetrator was ever found. After all these years, it seems we finally know why. According to police, Aaron Govendir made it all up. This week, New South Wales Police announced that they had arrested and charged Aaron for Denise's murder. They now allege that he staged the robbery and fabricated the story of the home invader disguised as a police officer to cover up the fact that he had actually killed his wife. While it's unclear what caused the incredible development after all these years, from what authorities have said, there's no one smoking gun. Rather, it seems that the arrest is the result of years of slow police work, much of which was built on the case that the original investigative team did back in 1998. However, a spokesperson for the New South Wales Police did say that since 2021, when the case was officially reopened, they have gathered new medical and forensic evidence, as well as additional statements from witnesses. Aaron was arrested on August 15th and has since been charged with murder. He has been granted bail, though with conditions such that he must surrender his passport and not contact any witnesses in the case, including his own children. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.